Hello everyone, today we continue to study physiology of nerve system and we continue study excitability tissues in general. Today we will look at the autonomous nerve system. Sometimes we say vegetative nerve system. As usual, we have the plan, review of lecture and video, a lot of video and some practical works and tests for you. And in general, our autonomic nerve system is a part of our overall nerve system that controls the autonomic function of our bodies that we need to survive. And visceral nerve system controls the visceral function of the body and acts involuntary. This internal function includes regulating heart rate, digestion, salivation, and more. That does the autonomic nerve system do? In general, your autonomic nerve system breaks down in the three divisions, each with its own job. Sympathetic nerve system division is system activates body process that help you in times of need, special times of stress or danger. Parasympathetic division, this part of our body, autonomic nerve system, does the opposite of our sympathetic nerve system. This system is responsible for the rest and digest body process. New studies now describe a metastatic or enteric autonomic nerve system. Enteric nerve system is part of our body. Our autonomic nerve system manages how our body digests food, and we will discuss about this part later. But first, let's find the differences between somatic and vegetative nerve system. You know the part of somatic nerve system from previous practical. So somatic nerve system, the somatic nerves is the part of the nerve system which controls the voluntary movements in the body. You see the skeletal muscles, and usually this muscle work like a voluntary. Autonomic nerve system is a part of the nerve system which regulates the involuntary works, movements in the body. Next, somatic nerve system innervates the voluntary skeletal muscles and autonomic involuntary muscles, cardiac muscles, and glands. Next, smell. Tests, length, touch, pain, and temperature are the sensory stimulation detected by the somatic nerve system. The blood pressure, salinity, and pH, the sensory stimuli detected by the autonomic nerve system. Next one, somatic nerve system always causes the excitatory response at the effector. Autonomic nerve system may cause either excitatory or inhibitory response at the effector. Next one, somatic nerve system realize transmitter acetylcholine or norepinephrine for autonomic nerve system. So in a somatic nerve system works only acetylcholine. Autonomic nerve system can use acetylcholine and norepinephrine and even just epinephrine. Here we see this case, norepinephrine and epinephrine. Sometimes we say noradrenaline or adrenaline. Next one, the somatic nerve system is composed of a single neuron between the central nerve system and the effector organ. Single neuron here you see. For autonomic nerve system, is composed of two neurons with a single synapse between the central nervous system and effector. And next, this is composed of thick myelinate new fibers. You can find these nerve fibers in a somatic nerve system with the myelin special cells. And in autonomic nerve system we can find two parts, with the myelin and without myelin, unmyelinated nerve fibers. Next one, spinal and cranial nerves are two parts of autonomic nerve system somatic nerve system, and autonomic nerve system, sympathetic and parasympathetic nerves are two branches of autonomic nerve system. For somatic nerve system, posture and movement are the function of the somatic nerve system. Visceral functions such as secretion and control of metabolism are the function of the autonomic nerve system. In the slide is a table where you can find description briefly what was already been listened, all differences between somatic and autonomic nerve system, and after that we have compared the somatic and nerve system with the autonomous system. And let's take a closer look at the structure of the autonomous nerve system. Two major division, sympathetic division, red lines, and parasympathetic green lines usually have opposite effects. They may also work independently. Some structures innervated by only one division. You see here it's sympathetic part innervates vessels of the body, skin, glands, subcutaneous muscles here. Sometimes work together in a complex process. All these parts work together. Both divisions influence third autonomic division, call it the enteric nerve system, you know. These systems are different in the structure of ganglia and the length of preganglionaric fibers and postganglionaric fibers. I won't find this picture, but it's better to use this picture. In the sympathetic division, this part, thoracolumbar division or thoracolumbar outflow, the preganglionaric neurons have their cell bodies in the lateral horns of the gray matter here and gray matter of the spinal cord in the thoracal segments, thoracal parts of the spinal cord, and the first two and sometimes three lumbar. Here you see only two, first two lumbar parts of the spinal cord. In the parasympathetic division, craniosacral division, craniosacral outflow, the preganglionaric neurons have their cell bodies in the nuclei of four cranial nerves in the brain stem and in the lateral gray matter of the second through four sacral segments in the spinal cord. Sympathetic ganglia. Sympathetic ganglia are the sites of synapses between sympathetic, preganglionaric and postganglionaric neurons. There are two major types of sympathetic ganglia. Sympathetic trunk ganglia, also called vertebral chain, two parts, right and left, and ganglia or paravertebral ganglia, and one more prevertebral ganglia, collateral ganglia. 5 types of prevertebral ganglia are celiac ganglia, superior mesenteric ganglia, interior mesenteric ganglia, audicoronar ganglia, renal ganglion, and in a parasympathetic ganglia, preganglionaric axons of the parasympathetic division synapses with postganglionaric neurons in terminal intramural ganglia. There are the ciliary ganglia, pterygopalatine ganglion, submandibular ganglion, optic ganglion, you see, ciliary. And once axon of sympathetic preganglionaric neurons pass to sympathetic trunk ganglia, they may connect with postganglionaric neurons. A single sympathetic preganglionaric fiber with many axon collaterals branches and may synapse with 20 or more postganglionaric neurons. Postganglionaric neurons and axons of preganglionaric neurons of the parasympathetic division pass to the two terminal ganglia near or within a visceral effector in the ganglion. The parasympathetic neuron usually synapses with only 4 or 5 postsynaptic neurons, all of which supply a single visceral effector, allowing parasympathetic responses to be localized to the single effector. So here you see multiplication, multiple response, and here is very single effector exactly through the wall of organ. So here we see the text, and next one here the same. Sympathetic, parasympathetic parts, and next these systems are different in receptors. The parasympathetic nervous system uses chiefly acetylcholine as its neurotransmitter. Also peptides such as cholecystokinin, for example, can be used. The acetylcholine acts on 2 types of receptors, the muscarinic and nicotinic cholinergic receptors. Muscarinic agonists are also called parasympathomimetics and primary cause smooth muscle contraction resulting in decreased heart rate, bronchoconstriction, increased gastrointestinal tone, and papillary constriction. There are 2 types of muscarinic agonists, direct acting and indirect acting. Direct acting agonists bind to the muscarinic receptor. Indirect acting muscarinic agonists work by preventing the breakdown of acetylcholine, thus increasing the amount of acetylcholine available to bind receptors. So here you can find all names of these receptors and numbers. For sympathetic nerve system includes alpha 1, 2, beta 1, 2, 3 receptors. Epinephrine and norepinephrine stimulate these receptors, causing the overall fight or flight response in various target organs. Medications causing similar effects are called adrenergic agonist or sympathomimetics. And here I can find information about this medication. And on the other hand, adrenergic antagonists block the effects of sympathetic nerve system receptors. Dopamine also stimulates these receptors, but it's dosage based. Dopamine causes vasodilatation of arteries in some organs, in kidney and heart and brain, depending on the dosage. See next slide. Table for comparison of stimulation and inhibition of this sympathetic nerve system, and the following table shows the effects of influence of different receptors for epinephrine and norepinephrine and different organs too. So next part of the system, the metastatic system, here, or enteric nerve system. It is a part of autonomic nerve system, the complex of microganglia situated in the walls of visceral organs and having marked mobility activity, and not only in intestine, in a heart, in a stomach, urethra too. According to the location, separate areas of the system can be defined by its site. For example, the cardiometasympathetic area in the heart. The metasympathetic system attains the phases of the true autonomy. Its cells have no direct connection with the heart centers. This connection is established through mono and polysynaptic sensory and afferent units of sympathetic and parasympathetic nature. The system has a definite set of functional elements, including sensory ones, mechanochemical and thermosensitive, interneurons, tonic neurons. Neurons of the metasympathetic system are incorporated through interganglionic connection into the common functional network of the organ. You see this network of ganglion inside the tubes of intestinal. A typical excitatory pattern, such as the presence of a temporal connection in the work of at least two neurons according to dry follower type. In addition to excitatory, they are also showing inhibitory interaction. Besides well-known system of meditation, including cholinergic and adrenergic ones, the metasympathetic system has its peculiar transmission, and it's time to understand the regulation of the autonomic nerve system. It turns out that it's not so autonomic. Everything we just considered was at the level of the spinal cord. It's time to look into the brain, and let's start. The first, we know also the lower brainstem has a major role in autonomic discharge and patterning these outflows in relation to both homeostatic demands and behavior. The brain cortex is the highest integrative center of autonomous function too. This has been proven in experiments on stimulation of the motor cortex, which lead to increased heart rate and breathing, and of course emotions and feelings can do some changes in work of internal organs. The second level, limbic system. The limbic system, especially the amygdala, plays a vital role in controlling various emotional behaviors such as fear, rage, and for internal organs it's always to change its work. At the third level, hypothalamus integrates autonomic response and endocrine function with behavior, controls blood pressure and electrolytes composition, regulates body temperature, controls energy metabolism, regulates reproduction, controls emergency response to stress, especially it is stress. It's part of sympathetic nerve system. Sometimes we say that sympathetic nerve system is stress system. So this part of the brain connect all this. And next one, bulbar centers of the medulla oblongata and cerebellum. The autonomous nerve system originates just above the spinal cord in a region of the lower brain, brainstem, called the medulla oblongata. Within the medulla are nerve cell bodies that fire action potentials and thereby generate autonomic nerve activity. Some of these cells bodies are grouped together into distinct location called nuclei. For example, some cell bodies are parasympathetic vagus nerves, transcranial nerves that here you see that send axons out to the body through the vagus nerves to innervate the heart and other visceral organs. You see the function of the vagus here, and a lot of organs has branches from the vagus, and we will watch the video about how the vagus works. Other cells located in the medulla make up the cell bodies that regulate sympathetic activity. The cerebellum is involved in the regulation of homeostasis too. Here you can find cerebellum, the regulation of homeostasis. The cerebellum in particular serves coordination role for vestibular stimuli and blood pressure changes, and shows both injury and substantially altered timing of response to pressure challenges in breathing coordination and regulation of autonomic functions. The reticular formation, here we can find the part of reticular formation, and very shortly time we will discuss about reticular formation. This part of the brain includes the cardiac and vasomotor centers as well as the respiratory centers. It also contains neurons that regulate swallowing, pain modulation, exactly the regulation formation receives pain and temperature information from the tracts and projects to the intralaminar nuclei of the thalamus. It's also the origin of the descending energetic pathways, where the special nuclear in this formation nuclear of Rafi. This nuclear contains neurons whose axons synapses on two interneurons in the spinal cord to block the transmission of the pain. As we have discussed, the influence of the two parts of the autonomic nervous system is different. We need to talk about visceral reflex, at least about visceral reflex. So we see these two slides about how two parts of autonomic nervous system works together with all organs. And we already know a lot about the design of autonomous reflex arc, especially the sympathetic part. But it's better to know how it works together. Both the anterior ventral nerve roots emerging from the spinal cord contain both somatic and autonomic motor fibers. The autonomic fibers are mostly sympathetic, but in the sacral region they are parasympathetic. The anterior root joins the posterior dorsal root, which is the purely sensory, this dorsal sensory, and to form the spinal nerve proper, exactly this nerve very short, which is only a segment about 1 centimeter long, where it passes between vertebrae. The nerve splits again immediately past the gaps between the vertebrae, intervertebral foramina, and somatic and autonomic fibers go off to separate destination. Here we see these branches. My diagram below contrasts the somatic pathway on the left with a variety of sympathetic autonomic pathways on the right. Here you can find these branches. So we have example of multiplication or divergence. The number of preganglionaric neurons is less than the number of postganglionaric neurons. And postganglionaric fibers are thin, myelinated, and short. And in addition, we have the branch to the adrenal glands as a part of the brain that produced catecholamines. There is a special reflector arc to this organ. And one more thing about the adrenal glands, we will see here a very important part of the sympathetic system, as it's glands that release catecholamines directly into the blood, and these catecholamines work very quickly, move through the organism. The brain layer of the adrenal glands is a modified ganglion. There are no clear sympathetic contacts with the organ. As in a soma, the postganglionaric fibers branches into chains, we say that varicoses, and one fiber innervates a large area of the organ, a long distance. And what about the reflex? About reflex in the visceral or autonomic nerve system, there are some reflexes, visceral sensory reflexes, Skin pains, diseases of internal organs are called reflected, and these zones are the heart and head, and we even have these trigger zones, for example the body of human, but for the animals the same areas. And we see these areas of skin with increased pain sensitivity, the pain of which is caused by diseases of the internal organs. Special, for example, first it is the part for heart, for lungs, the second one heart, two, and areas for stomach, for liver, six it's kidney, and sometimes from the back side too, and this lungs and area for heart. So the next one type of reflexes, visceral reflexes from the one organ to another, and for example cardiac arrest due to the irritation of the organs of the abdominal cavity. It's a very important reflex. That's why punches to the abdominal wall are prohibited in boxing, and this can lead to an athletics cardiac arrests and death. And today we will discuss lab work with the Holt's reflex, and we will watch the video. Visceral somatic reflexes, one more kind. Excitation from the organs is transmitted to the skeletal muscles due to the transmission of the signal along the visceral efferent pathway to the motor neurons of the spinal cord. For example, inflammation of the appendix to the muscles of the abdominal wall. Always the walls start to be contract, very hard, strong, and muscles are in a tonus. And one more visceral somatic and pupillary light reflex will be discussed. Next, somatovisceral reflex. The signals of the soma are transmitted to the internal organs. Examples are the Danina-Ashner reflex, or the excitation of thermoreceptors of the skin through sympathetic neurons leads to inhibition of the work of internal organs. And you see here the pupillary light reflex. It begins when light hits the retina and causes a signal to travel along the optic nerve. This is visceral sensation because the efferent branch of this reflex is simply sharing the special sense pathway. Bright light hitting the retina leads to the parasympathetic response through the oculomotor nerve, followed by the postganglionaric fiber from the ciliary ganglion, which stimulates the fibers of the iris to contract the constrict the pupil. When light hits the retina in one eye, both pupils contract. When that light is removed, both pupils dilate again back to the resting position. When the stimulus is annihilated, presented to only one eye, the response is bilateral, both eyes. The same is not true for somatic reflexes. If you touch a hot radiator, you only pull that arm back, not both hands. Central control of autonomic reflexes is different than for somatic reflexes. The hypothalamus, along with other central nervous system location, controls the autonomic nervous system. And evaluation of pupil reaction to light and about this reflex. I think you have all seen how the doctor checks the reaction of the pupils on the patient, especially when he's in an unconscious state and there are no somatic reflexes. What does the doctor want to know? At first, did the patient alive at all? And watch the video about what we can know if this reaction absent. Example of autonomic nerve system: dilatation and contraction of pupil. The autonomous nerve system regulates and aperture of the pupil, and it's especially visible in cats. Let's watch the video about it. Here we see the reaction of eye of cat, and let's start without any light, just the work of sympathetic and parasympathetic nerve system, adrenaline and acetylcholine. And here with the light and for dog. And today we will watch a video for two laboratory works. For first, oculocardiac reflex or Danini-Ashner reflex. We will watch a video of a real operation on the eyeball. Pay attention to the monitor and the sound signals signaling cardiac arrests. With mild irritation of the eyeball, there may be a slowdown in the pulse and heart beating, or vice versa. Usually we use students, and here we see the equipments and materials just volunteered, and accomplished pulse rate is counted, and then the patient is standing during some seconds, do pressure on the eyeballs, and after that we should to recount the pulse again, and if we see the changes must be or heartbeat and start be more or less. But in this case, in the case in video operation, give and surgery do much pressure, do much injury of eyeball, and this can be the cause of heart arrest. Okay, you see, and the doctor do nothing, just wait some seconds, and heart beating
totally flat for 10 seconds.
Start normally. And one more lab work which performed on a frog. demonstrates cardiac arrest with irritation of the abdominal wall and the work of Vahus. And let's start the video here. To start, we use the frog and prepare the heart for work. Fix the heart in equipment. Fix the amplitude of heart beating, heart contraction. It's just action of a Vahus on the heart. And here you see the reflector arc of this reflex from the area of abdominal wall. Signals move in a spinal cord in an area where the Vahus start, and then Vahus move signals, transmit the signals to the heart. And here you see the one contraction and more, and the heart start beating, but very, very slowly. This sympathetic part of the autonomic nerve system catch control, and heart start work as usual. So it's all for today. Here we see this graphic for our lab work, and as usual you have homework in a book Animal Physiology. You should read the text about nerve system, and in our Moodle page for you just video, short video, introduction in autonomic nerve system, and answer the test questions, test about vegetative nerve system, the stand test. And as usual you have a lot of video files in a description to this video, and see you later. Bye bye.